Welcome to the Restricted Handling Daily Intel Brief. This is what's been going on in China in the past 24 hours. Taiwan says Chinese Coast Guard activity around the islands surged in June, with 55 Chinese government vessel sightings compared with 30 in May. That includes Coast Guard and research ships, and Taipei says this reflects a broader Chinese strategy of using civilian-looking government forces to advance territorial claims. Think about this as Beijing trying to move the goalposts a few inches at a time. No single move looks like the start of a war, but the cumulative effect is designed to make Chinese presence around Taiwan seem routine. Taiwan's concern is that China may be practicing the building blocks of a future blockade. Officials say some Chinese Coast Guard ships operating near Taiwan have been converted from former naval vessels, giving them greater endurance and capabilities. They are increasingly operating in pairs near Taiwan's Pacific approaches, which puts pressure on Taiwan's smaller Coast Guard fleet. And this is where the strategy gets interesting. A blockade does not necessarily have to begin with missiles flying or ships being sunk. China could attempt something much more complicated, using legal claims, maritime safety rules, and Coast Guard authority to interfere with commercial shipping. U.S. Senator Tammy Duckworth recently warned that Beijing could try to restrict Taiwan's access to international waters under the justification of protecting maritime safety, requiring commercial vessels to report to Chinese authorities or accept Chinese assistance while transiting. That scenario would create a major international dilemma. Is it a military attack? Is it law enforcement? Is it a shipping regulation dispute? Beijing has spent years studying gray zone tactics because they create exactly this kind of uncertainty. Taiwan President Lai Ching-te is responding by framing the challenge as much broader than military pressure. Speaking at the Democratic Progressive Party's annual convention on Sunday, Lai warned that Taiwan must protect its democracy and prevent democratic Taiwan from becoming China's Taiwan. He accused Beijing of using what Taipei calls legal warfare, disinformation, diplomatic pressure, and intimidation. One issue raising concern in Taipei is China's new ethnic unity law, which Taiwan believes could provide Beijing with another justification to pursue people outside mainland China who are labeled separatists. Beijing rejects that criticism and continues to describe Lai as a separatist leader. The pressure is not limited to Taiwan. The Philippines is also dealing with a more aggressive Chinese approach in the South China Sea. On Monday, Manila accused Chinese Coast Guard personnel of physically attacking a Philippine sailor during an encounter near 2nd Thomas Shoal. The Philippines said Chinese personnel approached the area around the grounded Philippine warship and struck a sailor with a wooden baton after Philippine boats attempted to push the Chinese vessel away. One sailor was injured, and a Philippine rubber boat was damaged. The timing matters. The confrontation happened as Southeast Asian foreign ministers gathered in Manila, with Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi also attending. The Philippines is using the incident to highlight what it describes as a pattern of coercion from Beijing. China, as expected, rejected the accusations and said Philippine vessels were operating in Chinese waters. The bigger takeaway is that China continues to test where the limits are. It is not just about controlling territory, it is about shaping behavior. If neighboring countries begin adjusting their operations because they expect Chinese interference, Beijing gains influence without ever needing a major confrontation. Another major piece of China's strategy is economic leverage, especially through critical minerals. China continued restricting exports of several rare earth materials to Japan in June, sending no gallium, dysprosium, terbium, or yttrium. These materials matter because they support industries ranging from advanced electronics to aerospace manufacturing. Yttrium, for example, is used in coatings that protect aircraft engine components from extreme heat. The message from Beijing is clear. China controls important parts of the global supply chain, and it is willing to use that advantage during diplomatic disputes. At the same time, China's overall rare earth magnet exports increased, showing that Beijing is not shutting down the market. It is applying pressure selectively. Europe is also becoming more aggressive in challenging Chinese companies. The European Commission fined Alibaba's AliExpress approximately $629 million for failing to stop illegal and counterfeit products from being sold through its platform. European regulators said unsafe toys, dangerous cosmetics, and counterfeit goods remained online for weeks. The fine is significant because it shows a broader shift in how Western governments are approaching Chinese technology and commercial platforms. The debate is no longer only about prices and competition. It is increasingly about regulation, security, and whether large Chinese platforms are operating under standards acceptable to Western governments. There are also growing allegations about deeper Chinese support for Russia's war effort. A report citing leaked documents claims China trained Russian military personnel in areas including drones, electronic warfare, and chemical, biological, and radiological defense. The report says around 200 Russian servicemen participated in training at Chinese facilities in late 2025. China has rejected the allegations as false. But if the claims are accurate, this would represent a significant change because it would move Beijing closer to direct military assistance rather than simply providing economic and diplomatic support to Moscow. For China, there would be a second benefit. Learning from Russia's battlefield experience against Western weapons, intelligence systems, and electronic warfare capabilities. The war in Ukraine has become a massive real-world laboratory, and every major military power is watching closely. Taiwan is responding by improving its own military readiness, but the focus is increasingly on resilience rather than just weapons. Taipei is expanding drone capabilities, including its domestically developed Tengyun-2 long-range unmanned aircraft, which will complement U.S.-made MQ-9B systems. Taiwan also conducted exercises designed to test whether it can actually move forces during a crisis. Troops practiced moving armor and artillery through difficult routes, including the Shuishan Tunnel, and tested reinforcement plans for vulnerable locations. The point of these exercises is simple. Plans look great on paper. The real question is whether roads, units, and logistics actually work when pressure hits. And finally, inside China, Beijing continues dealing with economic challenges. Youth unemployment for non-students aged 16 to 24 dropped to 14.9% in June, the lowest level in a year, but still represents a significant issue for Chinese leaders trying to maintain confidence among younger workers. Chinese authorities also announced the repatriation of a suspected cybercriminal from Vietnam after an investigation into phishing websites and malware campaigns that allegedly allowed criminals to steal personal information. Thanks for listening. Keep your maps open, your sources skeptical, and your notifications on. For the written brief, find us at restrictedhandling.substack.com. See you tomorrow.